Hello, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be reacting to why aren't there any games like Battlefield 1? And to be upfront, I have no idea what Battlefield 1 is. I know it's a game, but I never played it myself, and I do believe I will be reacting to more videos on Battlefield 1 when the time comes. But I thought this would be an interesting video to check out, which is why I am reacting to it right now. But yeah, I'm pretty much going into this blind, so I do hope you enjoy it. And if you do enjoy this video, then make sure to support the original video. And if you do enjoy my reaction, then be sure to give it a like, comment down below, subscribe, and share, okay?
Making a game about World War I is kind of a dumb idea.
It
Primitive
is?
weapons and vehicles, battles that moved at a glacial pace. It seems like it wouldn't work, and the market proves it. Just take a look around and see how many games there are about other wars. There are tons of games about World War II, Call of Duty, Battlefield 1942, and Medal of Honor. There are tons of games about the Cold War. Black Ops is still covering it to this day. Of course, there are tons of games about modern warfare. Modern Warfare, for starters, but also Counter-Strike and Rainbow Six. There are games about
my husband likes Rainbow
warfare,
Six.
things that haven't even happened yet or are purely science fiction. There are even games about feudal war, like Chivalry and Kingdom Come Deliverance. But there is one game, one AAA game about the Great War, and that's Battlefield 1.
So that's
the
what it
answer
is.
to the video title might seem obvious then. Why aren't there any games like Battlefield 1?
Because it's slow
Because
combat?
making an FPS game about World War I is a bad idea. It must be.
Oh,
and yet,
so much first person.
Battlefield 1 is a good game. It was received very well on its release in 2016.
Wow.
And it still maintains an active player base to this day. So then how?
I do have to note that I have severe motion sickness when it comes to first person, so please don't ask me to play this game. And I don't have time to play the games. But I will be closing my eyes from time to time if the visuals are too much like first person stuff. But in any case, it's interesting that Battlefield 1 is the only World War I game. Is that true? Like, is that the only game that covers World War I? I would assume that there would be more, or at least one that uses all the weapons from World War I. Maybe not in a particularly World War I. It's like a tongue twister. Anyways, but I do wonder if there's like other games that actually utilize like tactics and weapons from World War I, but may not have a game that is just focused on particularly World War I. Do let me know if there are any. I'm quite curious.
How did Battlefield 1 beat the odds? How does this game stand alone? Why hasn't its success spawned any copycats? Let's take a look at its DNA to figure out how DICE managed to pull it off and ironically create the most iconic Battlefield game to date.
Maybe it's just difficult.
First and foremost, one of the most interesting things about this game that makes it so captivating is its stark contrast between the absolute horror of World War I and the game's fast-paced fun. The war
it's actually fast-paced.
All wars was one of the greatest losses of life in all of human history. Over 10 million soldiers gave their lives for this senseless conflict that ended nothing.
That's sad.
New weapons like the flamethrower terrified soldiers on the front lines, and poison gas was later outright banned worldwide. Troops suffered in trenches for weeks or months at a time. Once peaceful towns and villages became active war zones. There's an ethical concern about making a game about this. World War II games
so that
almost
makes more
always
sense.
place you against the Axis powers. There are a few complaints about extinguishing Nazi peons, often in amusingly creative ways. But the Great War had no specific common enemy. It was hell on earth for all sides of the conflict. Making a game about this topic was a very big challenge, both conventionally and with respect to the source material, for lack of a better phrase. But there are a lot of ideas here they can work with. It needed to be just right. DICE had their work cut out for them.
But it was hard, probably.
Its first challenge is working with the armaments of the era. The first portable automatic weapons were just being produced, and many common armaments of the period were bolt-action and semi-automatic long rifles. At the start of the war, the first plane was invented just 11 years ago in 1903. There was no such thing as a tank in 1914, or an assault rifle for that matter. These weapons, in a word, primitive. But primitive can be interesting. They're novel, and often only seen in museums. Most
Not
people
anymore,
have never seen
at least
a
in this
Lewis
game.
gun in action, or in any other shooter for that matter. So opportunity is here. The problem is that many of these weapons would not be fun in the context of a shooter. Machine guns were extremely heavy, and the common British Lewis gun
That's
was operated
heavy.
by two. One to carry ammunition, and one to carry the gun.
So I guess the biggest problem is the fact that they have to do a lot of research on how these weapons actually work. And for it to fit into a game, the work is even more difficult because you have to translate the research into something practical that you can actually utilize in battle in the game.
Standard issue rifles were made very quickly and at as low a cost as possible. Firearms like the Ross rifle jammed frequently, with performance worsening in field conditions. There are very few games with jamming as a mechanic, and for good reason. It's just annoying. Thus,
Oh yeah,
for
that makes
gameplay's
sense.
sake, all weapons need to be 100% reliable and operable 100% of the time.
So is that the
Mud
case in
and blood be
Battlefield
damned.
1?
Outside of those two categories existed less common or experimental designs. Weapons like the Velar Perosa or Maxim SMG
That is a
0818
weird looking
technically
weapon.
existed,
Velar
but
Perosa.
either saw very little frontline service or was only ever a prototype.
Oh, okay.
DICE would have to take some creative liberty with the armamentarium of the game. They added any and all weapons they could find from the era, regardless of whether they even really existed at all. Classic
That was
weapons
only
like the
one
SMLA
made?
Mark III were faithfully recreated for the history buffs, but oddities like the Xiaosha, the Howdah pistol, and the tiny Calibri were implemented as
Oh my gosh,
novelties.
that's so tiny!
Needing another person to carry your ammo for you would be a disaster.
I didn't know that there could be a weapon that's that small. How do you like use it? Like, is it meant for even like most people to like carry around? That's so cute looking though.
So light machine guns needed to be reworked to be self-portable. It's a careful balance between historically accurate and fan fiction. A balance that takes a lot of work to figure out.
And a lot of
It
testing
sounds
probably.
simple, looking at the situation at face value. It's a shooter. Shooters need to have interesting guns. But DICE was taking a risk. Remember, they needed to pay respect to the war.
Yeah,
The
that's true.
limitations of some of these weapons were all part of the experience. So they didn't take the gun out of the limitation. They took the limitation out of the gun. No jamming, no extra person to fire your weapon, and no national limitations either. Shotguns for all, not just the Americans. In-game, you can choose from all types of guns depending on your class. It's good fun to run around with an MG15 firing from a 200-round box magazine.
I assume the weapons that were actually like super heavy are basically no longer heavy in the game, right? Like it doesn't actually slow you down.
Impossible in reality, but plausible here. In a similar vein, the logistics and equipment of World War I were equally
Ooh,
primitive.
you can
Planes
fly
were
with that
still in
plane.
their infancy, and the very first tank was built in 1915, which was essentially a moving metal box with holes for guns to poke out of. Battlefield is known for its vehicles. They need to be part of the gameplay. So, like they did with the weapons, they embrace the crude nature of such machines. In-game
creative
planes
liberty.
are delicate and difficult to control, and tanks are weird and awkward. They're still effective in gameplay in the right hands, but their eccentricities could only be accepted in this context. Just like how a tank appearing next to cavalry could only appear in this context too.
It
What
can.
separates vehicles from infantry weapons, though, are their power. The game needs
Power.
some spectacle. Enter the idea of the behemoths. Armored trains, giant dirigible
Wow.
airships, and dreadnoughts are massive vehicles taken from history that are issued to struggling teams. A small group of players can board them, take objectives, and obliterate the opposition with ease until their eventual demise. It's like a boss fight for the winning team, and it's sort of a mystery why nobody has stolen this concept for future games. It works very well here. There is just
No other
nothing
game
like
does
finally
that?
taking out the opposing team's airship, only for it to die in a fiery explosion and crash into the land, remaining there as
Dang,
an
that looks
obstacle
so
for the rest of the
insane.
match. Part silly, fully awesome. These would never be able to appear in any other game. World War
I can
I
see
is
why.
the only setting where you could convert a blimp to a war machine and call it a legitimate tactic. So adding these in was a bit of a stroke of genius. A less fortunate aspect of the era is in regards to the human condition.
Oh,
If you were shot in the leg, there was a good chance you'd simply die.
that's
Field
true.
medicine was little more than a clean bandage, some opium, or an amputation. Communication was also challenging. Field telephones and telegraphs were unreliable and could easily be sabotaged, and getting information to the front lines was a constant struggle for all actors during the war. Some armies didn't have good supply lines, food was scarce in the trenches, and small arms and ammunition were often short on supply.
That's a shame that everything can get hijacked, basically. Because then it makes it even harder since having the right information can win you a war. And then not having supplies makes it certain that you'll get sick or just die from starvation or just not have energy in battle and then end up dying in battle because of it.
Lots of tools and equipment existed, but their prevalence was a product of logistics. DICE needed to convert these ideas to gameplay concepts, and fortunately for them, Battlefield's class system was already the perfect solution for all these painful aspects of realism.
Oh.
4 lean classes cover the loose roles soldiers had during the Great War, and have access to equipment that existed during the time, even if it wasn't very common or even realistic.
I mean, it's a
If
game,
people could
so
be
you don't have to
brought
make it
back
that
from the dead
realistic.
from a shot through the head with a revive syringe, surely the war would have been much different.
That's true.
No need to worry about losing that leg with the medic's medical crate, and ammunition is not a problem with the support's never-ending ammo box. The class system allows all the weapons and equipment to be divided into playstyles. No sniping with a bottomless box of ammo at all times. Players need to cooperate and play as a team to cover their needs. Assaults are restricted to use the submachine guns and shotguns of the time, and they carry
so that's how they're
anti-vehicle
limited.
weapons, making them perfect as the frontline soldiers. Medics use the auto-loading rifles and are responsible for the welfare of their team, with their healing potential and rifle grenade utility.
I said this before, but I've never played any FPS because I have severe motion sickness. But it's really nice that they have specific classes to make it easier for players to know what they have to do in battle. But at the same time, I do wonder what it would have been like if everyone didn't really have a specific role and then they would just do whatever they wanted. I bet it would be so chaotic.
Supports can gain the strength of 2 men, carrying both a light machine gun as well as ammunition for their team, and access to artillery emplacement.
Such an interesting
And
gun.
scouts get the marksman rifles, supplemented by a variety of scout-adjacent tools, like armor-piercing bullets, a little shield, and a flare gun to spot enemies. They all depend on each other for something. Assaults are best at pushing, mechs are good at healing, supports
So
are good at
much
suppression, and scouts are good at
person.
spotting. Appending the Battlefield class system was a given for a new entry in the series, but the addition of operations let these roles shine as the front lines, mid lines, and back lines during any match. Assaults naturally rush objectives and take space, with medics and supports trailing behind supplying either healing or ammunition, and scouts in the back marking and picking off high-value targets. Operations,
But does everyone
as well as
actually do
many
their
other
role?
modes, take place at real battles during World War I. River Somme, Fort de Vaux, Whoopkov Pass, and Verdun are just a few of the landscapes players will shoot, revive, and blow up their fellow man fighting to take or defend territory. These maps are gorgeous and are somewhat faithfully recreated from the real world.
I was a little bit worried to say that or I felt like maybe I was gonna be kind of offensive since it's supposed to be a fighting battle zone, but the actual like environment looks really beautiful. The way that they recreated it in the game.
World counterparts. At times snowy, other times lush. The color palette has incredible variety. The
That's
match can
quite
start
beautiful.
clear, fog rolls in, and clears up again. There's a lot of life put into each place in the world, and Battlefield's famous destruction model was seamlessly integrated into these locations. Explosions crater the earth, and tanks roll right on through simple structures. The dynamic nature of the environment provides a much welcome impact to player actions. Operations breathe new life into the Battlefield series,
Wellington
as it
Trench.
turned out that splitting up 6 control points into 3 sets of 2 in sequence proves to further push players into their roles, and conquering the last objective with a handful of men to spare.
I did wonder like how, because even if someone has a role, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're gonna actually do their role. But it seems like they fixed that with these zones
Is a feeling like no other.
and objectives.
Of course, these locations and battles during the war were modified for gameplay purposes.
That makes sense.
You just can't have a 2-month-long match.
That's
But
also
being
true.
at the River Somme grounds the player into the setting and really sells the idea you're in World War I. There's a very good framework here. Interesting weapons and equipment, simple yet rewarding roles and classes, a great core game mode, and a variety of history-inspired settings to draw players into. The cake is done, but the frosting is what the game needs. Incredible sound design bathes each battle in a wave of booming explosions, screams, and callouts. Each nation has its own array of distinct voice actors and outfit models for each class that you'll hear and see frequently. It almost sounds weird hearing an English-speaking person in this game, as each nation speaks their own mother tongue, and you can quickly get used to the German, Ottoman, and Italian lines of dialogue. When the tension of battle is at its highest, all you hear is the blast of artillery, the constant sound of gunfire,
If you close your eyes, then
the roaring engines of tanks and planes,
it feels like you're there.
and the
Power
death
of
cries
sound
your
design.
brothers in arms. The audio team at DICE really outdid themselves here. It's so well produced and real sounding.
Oh gosh.
It might be too much for some players. And on release, there's actually a minor point of criticism against the game. The sound is what embodies the setting above all else. Between
that surprised me.
the visuals,
A few parts
the
of it.
setting, and the gameplay, DICE had a recipe for a captivating Battlefield experience. A smidge of its iconic destruction model transforms maps from rolling vistas to crater-ridden death zones, and its class system allows anyone to perform a simple job and contribute to the war effort. Vehicles
able
like
to
tanks,
break the
planes,
buildings
and cavalry add a unique
and
flavor to
trees?
the player experience, and behemoths are fun boss-like entities supplied to struggling teams in times of need. The question, why aren't there any games like Battlefield 1, might seem clear now. Take a look at all the work DICE needed to do in order to make this game work. A complete overhaul of the weapons, a complete overhaul of vehicles,
It's just too much work.
dozens of
That's
detailed
basically it.
maps of real-life locations, a robust class system, a destruction system to crater terrain and level buildings,
Okay,
a
so you
soundscape
can.
containing over
Oh my
175,000
gosh.
audio files. Translating just one battle into a match is an incredible undertaking, never mind all fronts of the war. And to do all of that in good faith is a Herculean task. It's one thing taking a specific gun or a specific story and putting it into the game. It's another to mold that into a puzzle piece that fits with the complete picture.
That is a lot
Take
of
a
work.
look at the first campaign mission, Storm of Steel, named after the memoir of the same name. It combines everything this game does well. An engaging, hauntingly atmospheric opening that throws you directly into the middle of no man's land. Each time you die, your perspective shifts to a different soldier participating in the battle. It shows you the scale, the trepidation, the savagery, while still being morbidly fun.
Oh boy.
It makes you feel wrong.
Yeah.
These Germans may have been real people, their life extinguished en masse by your hand. A feeling of guilt that must have plagued surviving soldiers after the war. Just a simulation for you. But what you see, what you hear, what you feel, it's the most authentic interactive slice of the war ever created.
I do wonder this, if, because you know how gassing was basically banned from all countries pretty much after World War One, if I remember correctly. I'm not a history person, so I might have gotten some details wrong. But I do wonder if making a game like this actually can help reinforce the idea and understanding of why such a thing was banned. Because even if you know that it was banned for a specific reason, it doesn't mean that you can empathize or actually understand, like truly understand. But I wonder if games like these actually truly help people understand, like, this is why it was banned. And that's something I do wonder if people actually feel that way and empathize and understand the reasons very clearly because of this. Because usually when you think of games, you think of games playing for fun. But I do think there's a strength to games in portraying and helping people understand why things have been made and why things were decided on accordingly, at least in real life.
Deeply memorable experience that can only be done in the way that the game presents. That's why making a game about World War I is kind of a dumb idea. It's simply a massive amount of work. Nearly every piece of the war had to be reinvented for playability, and a lot of supplemental systems needed to be added to make it work. Systems that Battlefield already had in previous titles. To make a game greater than what DICE pulled off with Battlefield 1 is nearly impossible. Plus,
basically, it means that DICE was only able to make something like this because they already had the systems in place. If any other company was trying to recreate something like this, it would be pretty difficult to at least make it different and distinctive from what DICE does for their games.
they had time on their side. Battlefield 1 was developed and released during the war's centennial anniversary.
Wow.
And now that it ended over 100 years ago, it seems interest in the war is at an all-time low. After all, everyone who ever lived through it is now gone.
That's kind of
A
sad
relic
to
in
think
history.
about.
Why try to make a game to live up to Battlefield 1? It was released at the exact right moment. It wouldn't be a surprise if it was remembered as the studio's magnum opus. It's lightning in a bottle, and DICE used every trick in the book to make this game not just play, but feel like history. A bad idea, executed perfectly. Maybe that's the point. The war to end all wars didn't end war.
That's
but
true.
maybe the game to end all games about the war to end all wars can. Only time will tell.
Unfortunately, I don't think that
If
will
you've
be the
made it
case
this far.
because people are people, and unfortunately, people will repeat history even if they learn history, ironically and unfortunately. So I wouldn't be surprised if things happen because people just can't learn from history. And if that means another war happens, then that means a war will happen. And I think that is the case. But I do think that the fact that they put so much emphasis on, I guess, honoring what has happened in the war, or at least recreating it to the best of their ability, but at least making it fun for people, they've done a very good balance of that. And that's something that I quite admire of their work. Because I imagine that the amount of testing that they did for each weapon and each environment and everything must have taken a long time. And yet they still released it on time on that anniversary that this content creator mentioned. But let's keep
Thank
going.
you very much for watching. This has been Game DNA. Keep playing and keep learning.
Okay, so I guess we're pretty much at the end, so I'll pause it here. But if you enjoy watching this video, then make sure to support the original video. And if you enjoyed watching my reaction, then be sure to comment, like, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye! Oh, and by the way, if you want to suggest more Battlefield 1 videos for me to check out, especially about the lore or story or anything else, which I don't know if they have a lore or story, if they have a story mode. So please do explain if they do. But if they do, then please let me know if you have any videos in mind for me to check out. In case, I'll see you guys later. Bye!